I don't know how many of you have ever been on a houseboat. I'm sure most of us have been on some kind of boat, but when I was in high school, my choir director lived on a houseboat. And so it was a tradition every year that he would invite over a small group of us, the small chamber choir, to hang out on his boat. Now, you wouldn't hear that nowadays, a teacher inviting a bunch of high school students onto his boat. But it was nice. It was a nice little celebration for us. It was this houseboat, so it was a 2-bedroom, and you could either hang out on the top, or you could go underneath where there was like a kitchen and 2 bedrooms and like a little hangout living room type place. But this is really the biggest boat that I've ever been on. It's not as big as a cruise ship, and I've heard that can rock you pretty solid as well, get you really sick. But even though we were on a small boat, we were pretty safe. We were pretty contained. We were a bunch of high school students, so we could find trouble even in that small contained space, but not much. We were pretty safe, and I think that our parents trusted us to be in good hands. But I could imagine how scared I would be if I were in the middle of a lake when a storm came by, even in this comfortable houseboat. All of a sudden, the boat is rocked, the waves come, and I might feel as if I were going to fall out. We can imagine how the disciples felt, those of us who have been on boats. They were comfortable, hanging out, sleeping even. When the boat gets rocked by a storm, they can't get their bearings. Things are rocky. Things are unsteady. And yet they're still being asked to get out of the boat. Now, if you've been a Christian most of your life, you've heard this story many times before. Jesus walks on water. There are many songs about it, many rap songs about it. And there are so many theories floating around about how Jesus walked on water. Well, maybe the water was just denser. Was Jesus standing on a sandbar, maybe? It was just different water. That's all it was. Jesus didn't really walk on water. He just kind of was hanging out. And these theories are pretty great for the doubter or for the one who wants to debate the story or negotiate the faith. After all, we know scientifically and empirically that it isn't possible. We went over it with the kids earlier today. It's not possible to walk on water. We know that we humans can't walk on water with some sort of assistance. It doesn't make sense. But we just want it to. We're logical and rational human beings. We want to know that if we step on water, we will sink. But if we step on land, it will hold. And that's just science. And so we live out our faith that way. We want proof. We want science. We want to know the % chance of survival of a disease, or that our bank accounts will have the exact number that we've left it at. It's just logical. So when Jesus calls Peter to step out on the boat, we can relate to what happens next. We may even scream, "See, Jesus, I told you that water does not hold my body." All the while, Jesus is saying, "See, I told you. All you had to do was trust. I'll be there for you. I won't let you fall. I'll lift you up when you begin to sink, and all you really have to do is keep your eyes on me." All? Really, Jesus? All? Do you know how hard that is with all the storms? Do you know that I have to deal and sit with the voices in my head? Turn on the TV any day and you can see all the distractions. The news, who's right? Is it Fox News or is it CNN? Talk shows, is it The View or The Talk? Even preachers. Do we listen to Joel Osteen or do we listen to Andy Stanley? And that's not even talking about the temptations in our daily life. What do we wear? What do we eat? How do we spend our time and how do we spend our money? All of these things compete with Christ. Christ is out there in the middle of the water calling to us, and all we can do is look around. The thing that I find amazing about this verse is that Jesus asks us to respond with just one word: come. Just come. There's no long diatribe explaining to Peter about the density of the water, or how he's really just walking out on a sandbar. It's okay. He just says, come. Come. You know what? As I look at this scripture, I see that we have 3 different ways to respond. First, we can come when called. We can step out of the boat and respond faithfully. What's the worst that can happen? Well, Scripture tells us we could sink. But Christ is right there, hand outstretched, ready to grasp us. But some are just waiting for Jesus to come and calm the winds. Some will only worship when the winds are calm and they've been shown favor. That boat is just way too comfortable. The problem is, we can sit and we can wait for the storm to pass. We can wait for the boat to become comfortable again. We can wait for it to stop rocking. But the funny thing is, if we wait for that, do you notice something? We're not where Jesus is. He called you to trust. He called you to get out of the boat. He's called you to be with him. Okay, so what does that look like? For many of us, that looks like trusting God with our finances. Listen, I know the feeling. You know that you're supposed to tithe, but that 10% on your paycheck is a car payment. The mortgage payment, it's groceries for the month. And you just don't know how you're going to make it. Christ says, come, trust. You might not be able to go out to eat as much or take that trip to the beach, but God will provide. But for some of you, that's setting aside some extra time for Bible study. But the kids and the work and the housekeeping, you just don't think that you have an extra moment to spare. Christ says, come and trust. For some of you, that's going out in the world in service. That's spending some time in those areas where God is calling you to leave the comfort of your own home and community to go to some uncomfortable areas. Christ says, come and trust. For some of you, that's standing out here and singing with the choir. Maybe for some of you, it's that God has gifted you with an amazing artistic talent. And you know that your gifts could be used in worship. Christ says, come and trust. Maybe it's finally inviting that family down the street to come to worship. Maybe it's just lunch. It's the way that God has called you to open your home. Christ says, come and trust. You see, there's a way that each one of us has been called to step out of the boat. There's a way that each one of us is not quite sure that we're ready to get out. Some of us are dealing with some big storms. Some of us are just dealing with some rockiness. Each one of us has ways, though, that God is calling us to step out of the boat, and we want to make excuses. We want to make excuses for why or how or where, how we can't do it. Well, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough talent. The amazing thing is, when we say any of those things, we're telling God to his face, God doesn't know. God doesn't know what to do with our time. God doesn't know what to do with our talent. We know better. But the thing is, the storms will never fully calm. We'll never feel fully balanced. So if you're waiting on the storm to pass, don't. Trust God. Trust that he will catch you if you start to sink. Trust that he has provided, and he will provide all you need. Might not look like how you want. Might not look how you dreamed. But God won't. We're going to do something a little different today.